it seems like the U.S. we're on this big ship and we spotted an iceberg in front of us, a mile
Yeah, so we
away,
just right.
and we decided to stay course. And
Yeah,
you
we got to
think
hit the
that
iceberg. What else can you do?
right, but you think that a popular move for a politician would be the person that would just turn the
Yeah,
wheel
well,
and miss the
I think there's no
iceberg.
question about it that it would be popular. That's what we're talking about. That do we really have a democracy? And there are all kinds of issues where that would be popular, right, for politicians to embrace. And that's partly what explains the success of Trump back in 2016. He started to say things that he wasn't supposed to say, but were very popular. And, part of it was just like, yeah, for no more wars in the middle, let's have a republic, not an empire. But that's not how these parties operate. It's the mega donors that really get to dictate policy. I mean, it seems like maybe it would have seemed like an extreme statement a couple decades ago, but I think it's just obvious now,
Hmm. Well, in our last episode, you said something that I thought was interesting. You said that you have never been so uninterested in a presidential election as this one, which I think, if you think about what this presidential election's been like so far, we've had multiple assassination Trumps on Trump, and
well,
if you just listen to
those have been interesting.
right, but and if you just listen to the rhetoric on the media, they talk about this is just an existential election. This is the most important one of our time.
Yeah, well, they say that almost every time, but it is the rhetoric is even more heated this time around. You're right.
Right. So why are you so cynical that this election why are you so uninterested? Do you think it has no impact on, or very little impact, or just overshadowed by these global events, and
right.
that nothing really changes? We said democracy was an illusion. Do you still,
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just pointing out, again, it just doesn't really seem to matter what the people think. It's what the mega donors think and what the deep state, its policies. And nothing, there can be changes, and not, but I don't, I just don't know what kind. It could matter in limited areas, but all in all, it's just not going to matter, for all those reasons. And it's just the level of the debate, if you want to even call it that, is just so low that I just don't want to kind of demean myself by following it. The other day I was with our friend Chip, and I spent a couple hours, watching the news, and it was just, afterwards, I just felt like my IQ had dropped like 30 points. Everything was just so stupid. I mean, it was just so empty, and it had so little to do with reality. I had that impression, but I walked away with that impression, just entirely confirmed, about this election.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, maybe you think that it doesn't really matter in terms of policy, but I think it is going to matter for Americans and the world just because of the level of rhetoric that is being used. I don't know if you just saw recently at the CNN town hall that Kamala Harris was at. The question that Anderson Cooper asked was, General Kelly stated that, Trump is a fascist and a big admirer of Adolf Hitler, and some other former Trump administration people have said that he's a fascist. And then he asked Kamala, do you believe that Trump is a fascist? She says, yes, I do. He is. And so this type of rhetoric is gearing up again, ramping up, that we're equating Trump to Hitler, saying that he is a fascist, which I just feel like could lead to the groundwork for something seismic in the United States if Trump wins, regardless of who wins. But I think if Trump wins, you have the deep state that is clearly latching on to this idea that Trump is an existential threat, and that there could be some type of almost a mini civil war where you have kind of the deep state that just has this allergic reaction to Trump.
Yeah.
For whatever
I would
reason.
say actually probably clearly there is a good part of the deep state that has that allergic reaction, as you put it, to Trump. But I think a lot of the deep state actually learned the lesson of the first term, is that we can control this guy. Unfortunately, I think that's true, and I think they're right about that they can. But yeah, there is this hysteria and this overheated rhetoric. This is a threat to democracy. He's a fascist. He's literally Hitler, whatever that's supposed to mean. Like Hitler, with that's undergone some reconstructive surgery or something. Anyway, the word literally is always misused, so I won't go into that. But and yeah, that can lead to real extreme actions if in fact he does win the election. And if Hitler has won the election, then you are fully justified in trying to assassinate him or overthrow him or to launch a coup. Clearly, if people really believe that, then they will take those kind of actions. Now, we saw, of course, during his first term that that very extreme actions were taken. Notably, the most important was the Russia hoax. But this time they could be even more and more, openly, more open, more overt actions, something in the nature of a coup. It's not impossible. Now, it's just always a question in my mind. A lot of people talk like that. And clearly some of them really, really believe it deep down. I think a lot of them, it's just sort of, it's play acting. It's just they enjoy the drama of it and pretending to be fighting fascists. But, when push comes to shove, they don't really believe it. I mean, if they did, then they would launch a coup. We'll see,
Right. So, but I mean, maybe people within the deep state, some of them fully believe it, that he is, and that they may want to launch a coup. Others think they can control him. Others may just think, okay, yeah, we were just play acting. But I think a lot of the people, that have Trump derangement syndrome, I just don't see it. I'm afraid that there's going to be violence after this election. Do you think that's likely, that we'll start to see some real fissures in America where we can start to see things break away? I saw some polls, something like 25% of Americans think there's going to be a civil war after the election. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
That's
well,
just...
I don't see it. Partly, if Trump wins,
do you think they will just handle the election? They're laying the groundwork, saying he's a fascist, that they might do some legal...
I think it's more likely that some sort of action would be taken at the top, a coup, something like that, or a new plot hatched against him. I think that's almost, I'm not expecting a coup, but I expect that there will be something similar, at least, to the Russia hoax. As for, violence on the ground, in the cities, yeah, it could happen. I mean, we've seen it, but I don't expect it. There are... those elements that riot on the Democratic side are, most of them aren't really highly political. I mean, they're not big supporters of Kamala Harris. I think that it's just more often that they're, it's actually, the criminal elements, plus, a few ideologues from outside, the Antifa. But I don't think we're going to see anything like the riots that followed. Right now this name is escaping me. Who's the guy that was
the George Floyd riots?
George Floyd riots, right? I don't think we're going to see anything like that. I think it's more likely that some action is going to be taken at the top. I think it's inevitable. It's just a question of what form it'll take.
Okay, well, I hope you're right. And you think that really this election is, after the election's over, is it going to play into how the U.S. handles these conflicts, like with Ukraine? Do you think that we'll begin to walk away? Israel will double down support? I don't foresee anything. I don't. It could. Again, there are people in the Trump camp that have expressed real and I think intelligent skepticism about our support for Ukraine, more than skepticism. And most notably J.D. Vance. It's just, unfortunately, I just don't have any faith in Trump. I mean, he talks to them and he probably agrees with them all in all, that like that's his natural inclination. That's why he has some in his camp right now. But like just the other day, maybe it was yesterday, he was talking about possible secretaries of state, and he began listing the same old monsters, Pompeo and company. And really,
I that's kind of what I expect. I'll say not kind of. That's what I expect. unfortunately. That's been Trump. That's the way he was in 2016. Everybody's hoping that there's going to be a new Trump. I'm just much more pessimistic about that. I think we're going to see the same old Trump. And again, I hope that I'm proved wrong, but I don't think that I will be.